Hello, my name is Sarah and this is my second ever YouTube video. Welcome, settle in, get a drink. I've got a drink, get yourself a little snack. I've got my electric blanket on, so I'm going to feel nice and toasty because it's absolutely freezing in my room. But I'm here and I'm really happy to record my second video for the channel. So the first video was a newbie tag, which was sort of just introducing myself and answering some questions and just, you know, a little kickstarter to the channel. But today this is going to be a video about the books that I read in 2024. Just going to go over them and just talk about what I liked, what I didn't like. So just to clarify, when I talk about books, I am talking about audiobooks and physical books and Kindle books. So all three of those, they were just a mixture. I read and listened to a mixture of all three last year. So just as a disclaimer, this is a safe space on my channel, so there is no judgment of how many books you did or didn't read within the last year and going into this year in 2025. Reading is a comfy, cozy hobby, and there should be no pressure, in my opinion, to force yourself to read so many books. So for me, my goal going into this year is to read more books, simply because I waste so much time doom scrolling. I know that other people can relate to this, but it's honestly ridiculous how much time that I do waste just looking at nonsense, and I don't feel like it's a productive use of my time. And not everything has to be productive. A lot of the time I do sit here and I'll go into like a zone where I'm scrolling through TikTok for like 4 hours, and I thought, oh my god, I could have read like an entire book, well, a small book in that time, and I would have enjoyed myself. Instead I depressed myself doom scrolling. So yeah, I feel like there shouldn't be a pressure to read so many books a year, especially if you work full time and you've got a lot of other responsibilities on. So, like I said, no pressure. My total book count for 2024 was 36 books. That includes Audible and whatnot. This year I hope to read 40 books. So for me, that's a good amount, because the year before I think I maybe read 10 or whatever. But for me, the important part is ensuring that I enjoy reading, that I don't get burnt out, and that I kind of take in all the things that I read. I used to be a fast reader, but now I'm a slow reader, and I'm embracing it and enjoying the story. For me, again, this is all personal to me, is more important than trying to shove down a million books. So, just wanted to say that. Now, let's get into what I read in 2024. So like I said, I read 36 books, including audiobooks, in 2024. So kicking off on the first book is A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. Now, I got into the ACOTAR, let's just say ACOTAR Court of Thorns and Roses series at the end of 2023. So obviously I went into 2024 still finishing off the series, and I absolutely loved it. There's no shock there. That's one of the most popular series, if not the most popular series that's come out in the last couple of years, and I do credit it for getting me back into reading and exploring books again, because I really needed it. So 10 out of 10 for that. Following up with that, I then read A Court of Frost and Starlight. Now that's the novella in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, and I didn't really enjoy that one as much as all the other books, but it was a little break in the series, and I do feel like it was quite needed. So the third book I then read in 2024 was A Year of Less by Kate Flanders. Now this is a non-fiction book, and it totally changed my perspective at the beginning of the year, because I'd kind of like come to a realisation that I was spending a lot of money and wasting a lot of money on things, and basically that book was about how she was going to go on a spending ban for a year and just making use of the things that she already had. So I really enjoyed reading that book and her journey, and it really inspired me to do better the rest of the year. So I ended up packing up my flat and moving in with my friend, and here we are. I definitely still have some improvements to be made, but because of that book, I felt like I definitely had a better year and I was far less wasteful than I was the previous years. The next book that I read was from the Kindle Unlimited subscription that I had, and it's Things We Hide from the Light by Lucy Score. So this is the second book in the Knock 'Em Out series by Lucy Score, which is a romantic set of books. And I must have read the first one in 2023, but my brain is dead. So yeah, I've definitely read it. So obviously going into 2024, so going into 2024, I'm obviously now on the second book, and I really like this series. Again, I like all genres of books, so the need to read romance was probably a thing I was going through at the time, and yeah, I found it really enjoyable. They were quite like nice chunky sized books as well, I thought, which I personally quite like. But yeah, I enjoyed that. And then I read A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. So I finished off the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. And let me tell you, to me, the last book gets quite a bit of criticism from people. It's a bit of a Marmite. Some people loved it, some people hated it. I loved this book. The way that A Court of Silver Flames was my favourite out of the entire series is unmatched. Seriously, the character development, the girlhood, the womanhood. Seriously, the female friendships in that book. I don't know. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And yeah. So moving on, the next book I then read was Things We Left Behind by Lucy Score. So this is now the third and final book in the Knock 'Em Out series by Lucy Score. And again, the series is a bit samey book by book because they're about all these characters in the same town and they kind of intertwine across the three books, and it is a little bit predictable in that sense. But sometimes you want a good predictable romance. It's just cozy and it's something... I get my electric blanket and have a nice cup of coffee and just sit down and read. So yeah, for me, I was a little bit sad to finish that series actually. I'll be looking forward to reading more of Lucy Score's books this year. And then the next book that I read was... so these weren't books. I'd clearly not had enough of A Court of Thorns and Roses, so I decided to then listen to the graphic audio books. So the graphic audio books are like audio books, but they have actual actors and music, and it's real scene setting, and I loved these graphic audio books. I finished them all so quickly, and they were brilliant. Get those graphic audio books and noise cancelling headphones and just chill and play, like, I don't know, a cozy little game, play Pokemon or something. It's the best way to relax. I really enjoyed it. So the next thing I read, well, is something I listened to again. It was on Audible. It was Troubled Blood by Robert Galbraith. I think I'd started reading that series. It's J.K. Rowling, isn't it? And I really wanted to see where the series was going, and I'm not a massive fan, obviously, of J.K. Rowling for obvious reasons, but I had the book already on my Audible, and I wanted to see where the characters went, but I've pretty much given up on it since then. Yeah. So the next thing I started reading, and this took up quite a chunk of the early to middle of last year, and it came from Kindle Unlimited, and it was a series of FBI books by Kendra Elliott. Again, these are all on Kindle Unlimited, and she has multiple different series that she's written exclusively for Kindle. So this is where I went from my romance and romantasy era into my FBI thriller detective era. And I kept up with it as well. So I started reading the Mercy Kilpatrick series that she'd written. And what I love about Kendra Elliott's books is that across the series, all the characters make different appearances and they cross over, and I loved it. And you know what? Sometimes you just need to read a good, detective series, because my brain was craving it. But again, I read all of these. A Merciful Death, A Merciful Truth, A Merciful Secret, A Merciful Silence, A Merciful Fate, A Merciful Promise. They're quite short. I think they're around 300 pages each, and a good, easy read, enjoyable read as well, and I thought they were brilliant. So then following that, I went on to the Columbia River series by, again, Kendra Elliott, and again, these characters all intertwined from different series as well. So some of the characters in the other series are in this as well. And I read The Last Sister, The Silence, In the Pines, The First Death, and At the River. Now there's another book in this series that's just come out, I believe, and I've got that already downloaded on my Kindle, so that'll be the next book that I read this month. So now we're moving on to my favourite book of 2024. I love this book. I love this book even more than I love The Court of Silver Flames. So this is saying something. It is The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. I picked up this book not knowing that it was part of an entire universe called the Cosmere, which I've now started. And it's just a big, gritty, meaty fantasy series that I'd been craving. But anyway, after A Court of Thorns and Roses, I was looking for something that was less smutty but more serious. Not to say that A Court of Thorns and Roses series isn't serious, but yeah. And The Way of Kings fulfilled that in every way. So I was looking for a fantasy series that wasn't completely revolved around romance, and yeah, The Way of Kings hit the spot. And it's, if you're looking for like a big gritty, it's 1,000 pages, big gritty fantasy novel to read, I highly recommend it, especially if you like reading books with multiple characters and it flips points of views. Anyway, so that was my favourite book of 2024. Moving on, I then discovered that The Way of Kings was part of the Cosmere, which is a fictional universe that Brandon Sanderson had created. So I then had to go and write down an entire list of the novels that he'd written that as part of the universe and read them in the order that people had recommended. And I thank BookTok for that, because it's changed the game. There is so much more outside of The Way of Kings that I had to read, and the bits and the Easter eggs and stuff like that. And so, moving on, I then went to the beginning of the Cosmere and read the Mistborn trilogy, which is Mistborn, The Well of Ascension, and The Hero of Ages. And again, Brandon Sanderson, the man that you are, you shook me to my core with reading last year. Like, you've changed the game for me now, especially in terms of fantasy. I loved it. Absolutely loved the entire series. Now, with the Mistborn trilogy, they're a bit more younger based, so I feel like it's got like a real young adult vibe to it, compared to The Way of Kings. But yeah, 10 out of 10. I then listened, seriously, I've gone from like detective era to in my full-blown like fantasy era again. And I then listened to A Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. I'd read the books about a decade ago and I really fancied hearing the story again. So this time I did it on audiobook. Again, loved it. And then from there I listened to A Clash of Kings in the same series. And I'm slowly making my way through that, but the Game of Thrones series audiobook is on pause at the moment. And last but not least, the final book of 2024 was Elantris by Brandon Sanderson, which is the next book I had to read in the Cosmere novel order. Just to add that I did read a couple of short stories from a book called Arcanum Unbounded by Brandon Sanderson, which is a collection of short stories. I haven't put that in my list because I haven't read the full book. So once I've actually fully completed the book, I'll add it. But yeah, Elantris was the next book to read, and again, like The Way of Kings, just these characters being thrown into really awful situations and how they become heroes and they fight for their people. And yeah, God, I love a good hero story. And the way that the main female character is written in Elantris is 10 out of 10. I love her and highly recommend it. Going into 2025, my reading goal will be 40 books, which I think will be quite achievable. Let me know what your reading goal for 2025 is. I would love to hear what your favourite book of 2024 was as well. And just give me your recommendations and whatnot. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, thank you so much. So yeah, those are all of my books that I read in 2024. And yeah, thank you for watching. Please, I would love it if you liked and subscribed. It would mean so much to me. And I hope you all have a wonderful 2025. Bye.